is Short Story 1. He is a horror writer who writes on horror subreddits on Reddit. His stories are vastly unique and sometimes don't even make sense. He has had a couple of popular short horror stories that was well upvoted and lots of Reddit users had commented on. Short Story hardly ever replies to comments, and one theory suggests is that he is a mental patient in an institute for the insane. Some even suggest that he has had multiple brain surgeries and was even experimented on. This would explain for Short Story 1's weird plots that don't make sense, because insane people don't make sense. Another theory is that Short Story 1 is 1,000 years old, and because he has lived a so long life, his stories are a reflection of what he has experienced throughout the ages. This would also explain why his grammar is terrible, because language has changed so much in the last 1,000 years, and Short Story 1 has failed to keep up. Another theory is that Short Story 1 is an actual alien that is just having fun with the humans on Reddit. Short Story 1 being an alien would explain so much about his writing and why it's so absurd. Maybe Short Story 1 is lost in our planet and has no idea what he is doing at all. Short Story 1 is maybe an alien that has transformed into a human and is struggling dealing with the human mind and emotions. The last and most likely theory is that Short Story 1 is artificial intelligence robot and someone experimenting the robot by letting it write stories on Reddit and seeing humans react to it. As we know, technology is evolving so fast, and robots in the future are now a strong possibility. Driverless cars have evolved so much, and Short Story 1 might be a robot that can imagine. Who do you think Short Story 1 might be? Have you read his stories? Jessie and her friend Kayla were at home watching a horror movie when they started talking about the local legend, Slenderman. Jessie was saying, "Slenderman is real. He isn't just a made-up character." Kayla said, "Do you really expect me to believe you that a 10-foot tin man is real and you have seen him? Why didn't you take a photo of him with your phone then?" Jessie was getting annoyed and gave Kayla an angry look and said, "Okay, you don't believe me? Well, I can take you to the woods tomorrow to meet a friend of mine which will prove Slenderman is real." Kayla replied, "Okay, you're on." The next night Jessie and Kayla went out to the woods. They were walking down the woods when they saw a box with "First Clue" written on it. Jessie asked Kayla to see what was inside. Kayla said, "I suppose you think I'm afraid to open it." Then she opened it and retrieved a map where to go, looking for the next clue. As they walked about 10 minutes deep into the woods, they came across the next clue, which was another box. Kayla opened it again, and there was a map which apparently would lead them to the proof of Slenderman. As they walked towards where the map led them, there was a very high tree with a box hanging from it, saying proof. Kaylee said to Jessie, "There's no way I'm climbing that tree." Jessie said, "Turn around and close your eyes for 5 seconds. Then you can turn back around again and open them." Kayla said, "What are you playing at?" Jessie said, losing her patience, "Do you want to see the proof of Slenderman or not?" Kayla turned around and counted to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When she turned back, Jessie had the box next to her on the ground. Kayla asked her, "How did you climb way up there so fast? And what about this friend of yours you promised you'd show me? Where is he or she? Show me the proof of Slenderman being real. You told me your friend would show me the proof of Slenderman being real. How long do I have to wait to see the proof?" "Let me answer your first question first, and the second after," Jessie said. "First, I didn't climb the tree, and the answer to your second question is, my friend is over there, and he is the one who picked the box from the tree." Jessie pointed over towards the trees, and Kayla screamed when she saw the Slenderman. Thanks for watching the Assassin Rapper, and if you enjoy the content, then make sure to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified of new content. When Sarah was small, she used to always be afraid of the dark. She hated the dark even more now, and she hated her own shadow. It started when she was 7 years old. Her and her twin sister were in their room, and they borrowed a horror book from their mom. Sarah was spooking her twin sister Katie out by pretending there was shadows going to get her, and they were on the wall. Sarah realized that she could make shadows on the wall and spooked Katie out every time she turned around. Suddenly something fell, and Katie got such a fright she backed back and fell off her bunk bed and out the top story window and was killed instantly. 15 years later, Sarah still gets flashbacks every time she sees her own shadow. She went to counselling and everything over it. She knew she had to get rid of her fear. She knew it was awful what happened, but she knew she had to finally put it behind her. She wasn't going to look at her shadow anymore. What Sarah couldn't see, as she was walking down the street, is her own shadow take out a knife. Suddenly she heard a voice saying, "Don't you think you can outrun your shadow?" Sarah was certain she had shook off her obsession of her shadow, but turned around because she knew that the voice was not in her head. She froze in horror, because in all the years she just saw her shadow, not her shadow moving differently than her, and definitely not her shadow holding a knife. Suddenly the shadow lunged the knife into her and walked into her, then healed instantly and walked down the street. Katie was practicing walking down the street. "Hi, my name is Sarah. Thanks for watching the Assassin Rapper, and if you enjoy the content, then make sure to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified of new content." Joe was a therapist that saw lots of different patients with different problems, but little did he know that one of his patients would create a huge problem for him. Joe was having an affair with a lady called Lucy, but unluckily for Joe, one of his patients, Tom, spotted them kissing on the street one night. Joe was kicking himself how stupid he was, but his patient Tom would not give up on it. He knew he would not give up, ever, until he got what he wanted. He knew that was his MO. Joe worried about it a lot, until one session Joe had a plan. Tom had threatened Joe he would tell his wife about the affair, and Joe knew he wasn't kidding. But Joe came up with a plan that he knew would work. Joe said to Tom, "Okay, Tom, I know that I've been sitting here telling you for months about you having to control your urges, and I know that you have some crazy fantasies that would get most people locked up in prison, but I have an idea for you. I created a plan that you could live out one of your fantasies that you were always talking about. This fantasy, Tom, is what I'm talking about. This fantasy would get you locked up, and I mean locked up for a very long time. But what I'm getting at, Tom, is I can make this happen for you. I can make this fantasy become a reality with no repercussions." Tom gave Joe a curious look, wondering what he was about to say. Then he said, "What is this plan of yours, may I ask?" Joe took a breath and said, "Okay, well, I never gave in to one of my wife's fantasies, for the simple fact I know this might sound hypocritical when I'm a cheater myself, but I would never want my wife to sleep with another man. However, it is one of her fantasies to a stranger walk into her bedroom in the middle of the night and have sex with her. Now, what I am offering you is that chance to you be that stranger to walk in and have sex with my wife. But only if you promise me you won't breathe a word of my affair to her, and don't ever breathe a word to her or anyone else." Tom sat back smiling, then said, "Now, I must say, that sounds like a plan." Joe and Tom spoke for another 15 minutes, organising to him call over tomorrow night. He gave his address and time. The next session Joe was feeling a lot better, as he knew Tom loved the plan, and he had promised not to tell his wife. Now that he is giving him the chance of having sex with her. Lisa was Joe's next patient. She was beaten by her husband for months before she finally had the opportunity to leave him. Joe asked how things were going. Lisa said, "I am so jumpy at everything. I can't even walk down the street without thinking my husband is following me. It's got so bad I sleep with a loaded gun." The next day Tom was happy about what was going to happen tonight. He smiled at the fact of him getting the chance to sleep with his therapist's wife. It all felt so exciting to him, a stranger walking into her room in the dark and having sex. That night he drove over to Joe's house. The door was open, and he walked up the stairs to the room where Joe told him his wife would be. It was exactly 1 a.m, and Joe told him he would be gone out for a walk. Tom walked up to the bed and could see Joe's wife lying there. He wondered, was she pretending to be asleep, or was she really? He kneeled down next to her, about to kiss her, when her eyes opened and she screamed. She reached for her gun and shot Tom in the head. Joe looked out from his car across the street, smiling, knowing that Tom will be no more problem to him, and he drove off proud of himself for giving Tom the address of his patient Lucy, who he knew had a gun, right there beside her bed. He smiled, wondering, did she not realize she tells him every single session about having a gun by her bed? He knew she would blow Tom's head off instantly once she knew a stranger was in her house. Joe drove home and snuck back into bed. He was hoping his wife wouldn't wake up. Luckily for him, she didn't. He didn't want to have to explain anything. He was looking forward to the morning to tell his darling wife how much he loved her. Hello, my name is Martin. It was a sunny day in June. Me and my friends were visiting a local park where there was a very big house and a beautiful garden. The house was open up for visitors to look around, and there was a shop and even a restaurant. I am a huge fan of mazes, but was never in one in real life. I just did them in books and comics or wherever I came across one. The main reason I wanted to visit this park house was because I knew there was a maze there. When me and my friends arrived at the maze, I was so excited, but I felt that excitement drain away when my friends said they weren't going in because they heard a story that one time a boy our age went in there and was never seen again. I told them that it was just a silly urban legend that wasn't true, but they were adamant they weren't going in. I could see the fear in their eyes, and I couldn't understand why. I told them, okay, if you want to spoil the party, that's okay, but I'm going in and enjoying the maze. Besides, if anyone was going missing in there, don't you think we would have heard of a lot more people going missing? I walked in and was amazed at how high the ditches were. I could feel the excitement overcome me. I felt that my friends were missing out so much, but suddenly, after a half an hour walking around there, I felt for the first time a pang of fear, and a few minutes after that, I wish I hadn't gone in. I shouted out loud to my friends, but all I could hear was the echo of my voice fill the air. I suddenly got the weirdest feeling someone was watching me. I panicked, thinking it was the boy who vanished, who my friends were telling me about. I walked around and around and around. I had enough of the maze now. I wanted to get to the exit to get out of it. Suddenly, I heard some shouting, and to my relief, I realized it was my friend Sarah. When I got out of the maze, I acted like I wasn't afraid and said, "That maze is so cool. I was walking around for hours, it seemed like, and I genuinely couldn't find my way out. They must have designed this maze so well." That night I was in my room, but that was when the weirdest thing had happened. I walked out of my room, and when I walked into, which should have been my hall, I was in my room again. I suddenly saw a door in another direction, and once again when I entered it, I was in my room. This kept happening over and over and over. I could not make any sense of it, because I could look back and see my room, and turn around and look in the door and see my room again. I was panicking, thinking of the maze, knowing what was happening to me in there is happening to me right now in my own bedroom. Suddenly I fell over something when I was going through the door. It was a book. I picked it up and the title read, The Maze. I opened it up and read the first page, and a shiver ran up my spine. The publishing date was 2020, and the year at the time was 2010. I looked at the writer's name, and it was my best friend Sarah. Then I read, 10 years ago, my friend entered a maze that me and my friend warned him about, and he never was seen again. We had warned him of exactly the same thing happening another boy years ago, who we cannot find out who it is. I stopped reading, then jumped when I heard a voice behind me. I turned around. My dad was staring right in front of me and said, "Son, don't be afraid. That maze gave you a secret magic that will make up for any friends you may never have seen again. You will understand as time goes on. I know, trust me, I was that other boy that went missing." The story begins in the year 1899, when a monstrosity of a lighthouse was built in an island off Ireland. The weather and storms surrounding the area were lethal, and some say at the worst of times there would be waves 100 feet high. This lighthouse had to have people working there, but it was taken into account when building the lighthouse that if they did have one person living there, there would be so lonely and it would affect them so much being isolated, it would drive them mad. But if there were two, then them being together out in the middle of nowhere, it could drive them to kill each other. So that is what made it clear there would be 3 people working in the lighthouse. It went according to plan until 1900, when a photographer and his assistant and a very skilled sailor sailed out to the island, so the photographer could take photos of the lighthouse keepers and the lighthouse and island. It was then that everything got very strange, as they turned every stone in the island, looking all over for the 3 men, but couldn't find a trace of them. It was like they disappeared into thin air. It was not like them to have been swept away by being outside, as they usually always would go inside and bolt the door and stay in when it became evening, as they knew how dangerous the weather could get. The photographer was thinking of writing a story about the strange disappearance when suddenly he realized there was a crumpled up piece of paper in the room that he hadn't noticed before. He opened the paper and it had written on it, "I will help you solve the mystery of the lighthouse keepers and their fate. Wait outside the lighthouse at 4 p.m. The photographer was standing outside the lighthouse, hoping it was the right part, as it was so big. He was really anxious to find out who wrote the note and what they would say. There was no one on the island when they went looking, and they looked everywhere. Plus the island wasn't that big. Suddenly it got very stormy, and he could see a huge wall of water coming straight for him. It was then he realized that he wasn't only going to learn how the men died, but die exactly the same way. Just before the wave hit him, he saw the 3 ghosts of the men right in front of him. Hello, my name is Darren. I have loads of people telling me that I am crazy because I tell them that I can make people do things and hypnotize them, etc. I wouldn't stoop to the level of recording myself, making them act silly without their knowledge, etc. Because if they don't believe me in my gifts, that's their problem, not mine. I'm not going to record them so they can look back at them acting stupid and having no recollection of it. No, if they don't believe me, that is their problem. My girlfriend was arguing with me for weeks about going to see a psychologist. I wouldn't even film myself using my gifts on her, as the same applies for her. If she doesn't believe me, then that's her problem, not mine. But I gave in to her arguing and eventually went to see a psychologist. My girlfriend drove me to the psychologist, and there wasn't a word spoken on the way there in the car. I was angry that my own girlfriend didn't believe in my powers. When I was sitting down in the psychologist's room, I felt betrayed that I had to sit here in front of someone who didn't even know me and, like everyone else, probably thinks I'm crazy. The psychologist was an annoying-looking man who said to me, "Hello, Darren. My name is Frederick Ryan. I am sure you will feel a lot better after our session. But first, please tell me why you are here today." I said, "I am here because everyone doesn't believe me that I have powers to make people do things against the will without them even realizing it. They have no recollection whatsoever of doing it. I am not filming anyone or anything to prove I have the gift." The psychologist said, "Well, Darren, I am sure you must realize why people are so reluctant in believing you. I mean, especially when they have no recollection of doing so. But Darren, I'm sure there is a good reason why you feel like you are actually doing these things. But in reality, they're just in your imagination. And when you come to the realization that you're just imagining these powers, then things will start coming together a lot easier in the puzzle." The session lasted about 30 minutes. When I was out of the building, I checked my phone to see the live stream I had of me making him dance around his office like an idiot without even realizing it. I laughed. I knew it was just me that filmed him, and just me that will be able to watch this video. I got a thrill when I saw myself confess to making a person who annoyed me stab themselves with my powers. But then I switched back to the live feed and forwarded it up to real time, right now. I didn't realize that he had actually been recording me also. Maybe he records all his subjects, but I could hear our conversation come out of his laptop speakers. I could see his face go weird when I was confessing about the murder. He then was getting his phone ready to make a call, more than likely the police. I used my powers to him bang the phone off his head over and over and over until it was a bloody mess, and he fell down on the floor, dead. Hello, my name is William. For as long back as I can remember, I have this strange feeling that someone is stalking me. But the last few months the feeling had gotten much stronger. Strong enough that wherever I go, whatever I am doing, I can expect to see a shadow. It's like a silhouette. I can't make out no features. It is ruining everything I love to do. I love cycling for miles and miles, but even if I'm cycling on a bike, I can feel the shadow behind me, and even a lot of times, see it. I felt like I was going crazy. One night I was kissing my girlfriend, and that damn shadow showed up, and I got a start and jumped, frightening my girlfriend. She must have thought I was so weird, and I couldn't explain it to her How is she going to feel about me? I say, oh, by the way, a lot of the time I see a shadow chasing me. That is a sure and fast track way of making her my ex. One day I couldn't take it anymore, so I went to see a doctor who was able to help me find out what the hell was going on with me. The doctor said, "Hello, William. My name is Dr. Frederick Stone. I am going to try to help you get to the bottom of what is bothering you by using a method called regression hypnosis. Some doctors claim to go back so far in a person's life that they may even uncover things about any past lives they might have had. But I'm sure we won't have to go back that long. You see, William, what I feel like is happening you from what you told me over the phone is you are suppressing memories that cause you pain, but sometimes those memories are coming to the surface in the shape of a shadow that you imagine. It is your subconscious telling you there is a problem that you're trying to forget." After a few minutes I was in a hypnotic state, and I could see myself back in my house in a dark room with my twin brother. We were only kids and we were playing Murder in the Dark. It was a game that you had to search around the dark and touch someone to kill them. That's only in the game, of course. That's how I can remember playing it anyway. I pushed my twin brother too much and didn't realise there was something in front of him to trip him, and he fell down on the ground and banged his head. I could just hear the bang, but didn't realise what had happened until I put the light on and saw my twin brother lying in a pool of blood. And he was really dead. It all came flooding back to me now, and I woke up in the doctor's office with my blood thumping in my ears. I now know that it was not my imagination when I saw my doctor give a strange look behind me, and I turned around and saw the silhouette behind me, and knew my doctor saw it too. The difference is now I know that that silhouette is the ghost of my dead twin brother.
Mike was 17 years old and grounded because of skipping school to go shopping for new sneakers with his best friend Sam. It was a Friday night and he was missing a huge house party that all the kids in school were talking about for weeks. He was surfing the web, bored, when an idea came to him. He wondered what the deep web was really like. He quickly searched how to access the deep web. Using the Tor browser, he clicked on what looked like a search engine for the deep web. He saw different photos over different links. One said guns, drugs, hitmen for hire. He felt his heart thump in his chest and wanted to click out of the page when something caught his eye. He saw a white box with the words, "I see you." His curiosity told him, click on it, but his instincts told him not. He decided to scroll down the page and came across a link to Cannibal Cafe, which he guessed was a meeting place for cannibals. He almost got sick and clicked out of the page. Suddenly, his page went black. He looked for the X at the corner of the screen to exit it, but text appeared in red writing on the screen. It said, "Let's play a game. Mike had a wild idea what the game could be and just wanted to exit the deep web, but his curiosity once again got the better of him. He clicked on the text and the text disappeared. Then suddenly he could see 5 figures standing in a dark room. They had some sort of freaky body masks on them. A light shone in front of them, and to Mike's horror, he saw a person tied to a chair. Tears were rolling down his cheeks, and he seemed to be frozen in fear. Text appeared on the screen. Let's vote, people. Should this subject live or die? Yes for live, no to die. Mike gasped in horror as he read the words, hoping it was just some sort of sick joke, but not actually real. He clicked on yes to let the person live. He looked in horror and disgust as the no votes shot up way higher than the yes votes. What type of sick person would vote to a person be murdered? He wanted to look away, put down the laptop lid and pull out the plug, but he also wanted to see, was this just a joke? Hoping the freaks in bunny masks would laugh and say, gotcha, we're just kidding. One of the people in the bunny masks put a drill to the side of the poor man's head that was sitting in the chair and pushed the drill into his head as blood splattered out all over the room and onto the screen. Mike pushed the laptop down and pulled out the plug. He promised himself he would never surf the deep web again. Mike was playing a game when the screen went black. A box popped up on the screen. It had "I see you" written on it. Mike froze, remembering those exact words coming on his screen before that sick live execution came on the screen. He clicked the X to get out of the black screen. He nearly got sick with fear when the screen was full with a live webcam feed of him in his bedroom. It was a live feed. He realized someone must have been using his webcam to spy on him. He froze in complete horror when he could see on the screen a figure come up behind him, and the person said in an evil-sounding voice, "I told you, I see you." The madman behind him in the room was wearing a bunny mask. He was wielding a chainsaw. He pulled the chain and it started. Mike knew he was about to be killed. The man stood still and said, "We will have to wait to see the power of voting. Ye have exactly 1 minute to vote for this guy to live or die." Voting starts now. The timer went down from 60 seconds to 30 seconds in what seemed to be just 2 seconds. Mike ran to his window, wanting to jump, but knew from his upstairs room he'd break his leg, if not both legs. The madman with the chainsaw ran for Mike. Mike knew he had no chance. His life would be over in seconds. He couldn't see where the countdown timer was. It was confirmed when the lunatic with the chainsaw said, "It looks like they voted no." But he knew that the sickos watching would vote no. Suddenly, the man fell down on the ground. Mike couldn't hear the gunshots over the chainsaw, but guessed his best friend and neighbor Sam shot the madman as he was standing holding a gun. Mike asked him, "How did you know what was happening?" He replied, "I wouldn't, only that I checked out that link on the deep web you told me about. I got a notification there was a live yes or no kill. It took me a few seconds to realize it was you. Mike said you saved my life. A second more, I would have been killed." Both boys promised to each other and themselves they would never, ever access the deep web again.
I went on the dark web because I heard a lot of cool stories about it. I just couldn't resist. All of my friends were talking about it and I just had to go check it out. I saw some really creepy stuff on it and I guess I was on stuff on the dark web that I shouldn't have been on. So I shut down my computer and resumed to my normal life. The next morning, I heard a loud knock on the door and what sounded like the police. So I go to the door and open it. The police are there. They ask me if my name is Henry, and I tell them yes. That's me. They then arrest me and take me to jail. I'm 18, so I just made the cut for the adult jail. I was told that I was getting arrested because of my activity on the dark web. My parents tried fighting it, but there was nothing that they could do. I was only in jail for a couple months, but still, I was so young and I was frightened. Every day, I felt like I was in danger and just wanted to go back home. The jail I was in was a small jail. I guess it was for the inmates that were in for minor crimes and who were supposed to be getting out within a couple of months. We had more freedom. We worked outside and wasn't treated as badly since we were only minor criminals. One day, we were sent outside to work, the 5 of us inmates with only 1 guard. Usually, there would be 2 guards, but the other guard for some reason couldn't make it. So, we were all working, and 2 of the inmates tackled the guard, and then the other 2 go help the inmates, and the guard is out cold. At this time, I only had 1 week before I was leaving, so I wasn't really trying to get in any trouble. The 4 inmates started to make a run for it while the guard was unconscious. In a split second, I ran with them. I knew I shouldn't have, but my mind ran wild and I just did it. Looking back, I probably should have just stayed, but then they could have blamed me and I could have got a longer sentence, so I decided to take my chances. I ran home and I see my laptop on the dark web page, and then I see my mom and dad. They asked me why I'm out early and my dad smiled, and then they gave me a hug. After a couple of minutes of talking to them, the door slams open and it's the police. They tackle and arrest me. As I'm walking out, my dad apologizes for calling the cops and thanks me for taking the blame. As I'm on the way back to the jail, I put the pieces together. My dad has my laptop on the dark web website. He smiled and thanked me for taking the blame. I then realized that it was my dad who was doing the illegal things on the dark web using my laptop and not me. A couple months later, I go back home and there's nobody there. They packed up their things and moved. I don't know where they are to this day. I've never seen them again.